So hello everyone, welcome to Spaces with Kalu again this Saturday. Glad you all could make it. Going to be a great show today. We have Mr. Paul Onwuanibe with us. He's the CEO of the Landmark Group. I'm just so happy that he was able to join today. I'm just going to invite him to speak. Paul, I sent you a request. Just accept to speak so we can just get you on stage. I think everyone wants to hear what you want to say today. Hi, Uju, how you doing? You had your birthday last week. What's going on? Are you back now with us? No?
Hi, Calvin. Yes, I am. Thank
Yes.
you very much, Jess.
Excellent. Good job.
How are
Good.
you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm happy because as we get Paul to come in here, we're tracking for a while. Hi, Paul. You want to come off mute and say hi?
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
I'm very, very well, sir. How are you doing today? How is your Lagos or wherever you are? I hope you're keeping well.
I'm keeping very well. I'm in London, actually.
Oh, great.
Lagos is-
Oh, excellent. Yeah, good. They say Lagos or say London is the new Lagos. So I think you're in the same place. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Paul.
Let's hope Lagos looks like London soon.
Amen. That's a prayer, right? Amen. You're going to say amen on the back of it, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's a prayer.
All right, Paul. So welcome to Spaces, right? Paul, I've known you for a while, but I want you to just introduce yourself to the folks that are on the space. You're the CEO of the Landmark Group. What else can we know about you, really, Paul?
Yes, my name is Paul Onwuanibe. I'm the CEO of the Landmark Group. I'm Nigerian. I've lived my life in 3 continents: America, Europe, and Africa. I love 3 things. And it would be 4 if I were to include God. So God is obvious. But I love my family. I love Landmark, and I love Arsenal. I was born in England and went to my primary school in England. Then was sent to boarding school in Nigeria at the age of 10. That was sort of game changing for me. I met a lot of people that today I've worked with on that journey to success. I did an architecture degree in University of Nigeria, a master's in construction management in Imperial College in London, and an MBA in the London Business School. I worked in 3 different places: in architecture practice, in property development practice, and in office services firm before I set up Landmark 22 years ago. And since then, it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean, that's putting it mildly, Paul. That's putting it mildly. I mean, I'm on your website, Paul, and I'm just seeing tons of stuff here, from the developments to the Landmark Village, the event center. I mean, how did you do this? You schooled in Nigeria, you schooled in the UK, but how did you do this? If I ask you how, I want to learn, I want to see if I can build something like you've done. How do you do it, Paul?
Well, you know what they say: success is a journey, and the price of greatness is responsibility. I suppose early in life, having graduated from school and stuff, I took my time to learn and think. I worked in Europe. I figured out when I started visiting Nigeria, I figured out that all the things that you see in the rest of the world, and especially in Europe, will eventually come to Nigeria. By the time I got to Nigeria in 2003 or so, I realized that generally Africa was just becoming a stronger continent. There was a lot more people that wanted to make a difference. The leadership was getting reasonably better, and there were people. The consuming power was increasing, and so I thought to myself, rather than faff around in Europe and America and doing all this business, I might as well bring it to Africa.
Yeah.
So 18 years ago,
Okay.
I decided to come into Africa. I set up simultaneously the 4 corners of Africa in Johannesburg in the south, in Nairobi in the east, Lagos in the west, and Cairo in the north, and started this business called Landmark Africa.
Mm.
Quickly realized, which was the same thing I was doing in Europe and America, by the way,
Yeah.
which was basically office services and property advice.
Yeah.
I quickly realized that it was almost impossible to provide office services in Africa if you didn't have control of real estate. So went about acquiring real estate that were in certain areas to develop real estate and sell my own services. After that, another, I wouldn't call them failures, but there were pivots in the road. And then realized that in Africa, and specifically in some parts of Africa, in some of the major cities, that they suffered from infrastructure challenges, legal challenges, security challenges. The borders between sort of leisure and lifestyle and work were changing. They were graying out. And I realized that the best thing to do is create mixed-use environments. And that was the start of the landmark you see today.
Oh, gotcha. So, Paul, was it more like you saw an opportunity, or was this the plan that I'm going to come to Africa and do real estate, or did you see the opportunity that you took advantage of it? What came first?
I was grounded in Europe. I had offices in several countries in Europe and in New York. And I just visited Africa and realized that, if you come into Africa, you have the chance to change the market, to game change, to influence consumer preferences, to do things that you don't stand a chance of doing in some of these developed nations. And then you were no longer a statistic. You actually could make a difference to yourself and to other people, to people's lives and to destiny.
Gotcha.
So that was more of a chance. In terms of the thought of doing what I'm doing now, was always in my mind from school, right? But where I was going to do it is what changed.
Gotcha. So, did you see that because you were Nigerian? I mean, if you were Caucasian and you were just visiting, would you have seen that opportunity, or did you see it because you have been in Nigeria, school in Nigeria, and you saw the gap between the deficit in Africa, say in real estate, and what you had in Europe? What would you say?
Yeah, that was a great question, by the way. Great question. I've often thought about that. But I think you're right. The reality is if I was Caucasian, born, brought up, schooled, and had no other experience and worked in London, would I be in Nigeria today? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't be. The challenges are many. The opportunity is not immediately visible. So just being African and realizing that what I thought was chaos is actually organized. Organized chaos, shall I say. So, and I think the reality is that your chances are very limited in the West. They're there, but they're limited to create sort of generational wealth or global game-changing stuff, right? Because a lot of these things have been done and there are many forces fighting against you. It's not to say you can't achieve them, because people do all the time. But, when you come to Africa, excellence is a currency. Just being excellent is a currency. You can create wealth just by being good. As they say, you basically it's just easier to I think attack the market and make a difference to many people's lives.
Paul, I'm writing that down. Excellence is a currency. It's going to be, I like that a lot, right? So I just wrote that down. But let me get deeper into real estate with you, Paul. In terms of, say, in Nigeria specifically, right? As real estate as an asset class, if I was going to invest, is it really profitable to invest in real estate in Nigeria? What segment? I know you are all across the board. You're doing hospitality, you're doing leisure. But if I was a guy that wanted to invest, I had, say, 10 million. Is real estate worth my while? You talked about all the barriers you had to cross through to get to where you are. Is it worth my while, or should I just put money in the bank and make interest?
So it's a tough one. First of all, investing in anything requires you to have a brave heart. Yes, because you have the opportunity or you have the chance to lose your money, right? So if you want to stay safe, you get a job, make money, put it in the bank, and spend on things you need to, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur and you're ready to start a business, then I would say you can invest in real estate. Doing it as a side hustle helps to some extent, but the amount of sort of rigor and detail that you require to ensure you make money, if the going gets tough and the tide flows against you, is quite a lot. And many people sort of underestimate that. The reality, though, is real estate is an appreciating asset. Gotcha. It's not like a car. So if you ride the wave, and inflation is a natural hedge in real estate. So if you ride the wave, you will eventually do okay. And if you can monetize it from time to time. So there are 4 things about real estate that one needs to learn. especially as a side hustle if it's not your main job.
Mm-hmm.
One is it's a store of wealth. So it's meat in the freezer. Yes. If you invest in the right real estate or you build the right building, then it's there for a long time. It's generational. The second thing is a portfolio diversifier. So if you're doing other things, there's nothing like real estate. It's just different from everything else you're doing. Its characteristics are different, so it helps diversify our personal portfolio. The third thing is it has strong dividend-based income. So you'll expect, is what traditionally we call rent, right? So you'll expect if you've invested in the right place, you receive those rentals monthly, quarterly, or yearly, as the case may be. So it's quite strong. And then the last thing, which I think is probably the most important, it has low correlation value. And what I mean by that is it's not affected by many things in the environment, in the microeconomics. So things like inflation and resource issues or commodity issues, currency issues in many cases. It has a very low interdependency on other things. So it's a good side hustle if you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's a very different piece of business if you decide to do it as a business. If it's not a side hustle, then it has many opportunities but incredible challenges as well.
I hear you, Paul. I mean, you talk about store of value, it diversifies, it gives you dividend income, it's not correlated. I hear you talking to every Nigerian out there, i.e., in Nigeria, we've got high inflation with low options, right? You can't put money in the bank, it's not beating inflation. You have the stock market that is not that, should we say, buoyant. Yeah. So real estate looks like an asset class I and every Nigerian should be in. But what type of real estate? And Paul, you have some background noise on you. So just what type of real estate, Paul, do you think?
Right. Well, type of real estate. So if you could loosely divide real estate into 4 types.
Yeah.
Before people jump on me, I said loosely. So there's residential, there's commercial, which I would say offices or retail. There's industrial, and there's recreational, which is sort of more lifestyle. They all have different sort of properties, but as a side hustle, most people just invest in residential because you have a line of sight. Mm-hmm. Yes, you buy a building, you buy a house or an apartment, you rent it out to a family, and they pay you rent, full stop. The other parts of real estate are a little bit more complicated. One would think that sort of the most lucrative part of real estate is probably the sort of lifestyle real estate, so more entertainment and leisure, for the simple reason that it doesn't cost a lot to do, and it's a mass market commodity, so it brings in strong income lines, but it's very dependent on the environment you're in and people's pockets. Industrial is reliable and stable because you're renting it to organizations that have a big need, but it requires big bucks and long term to yield. And commercial sort of has very high potential to yield income, but it's very complicated and very complex. And I'll only do it if I'm a real estate developer. I wouldn't do it as a side hustle. So
what should we say in terms of your portfolio? Where you guys waiting? Are you more of, say, residential, recreation? Where's Landmark on that scale? You just
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. It's Landmark, we're a mixed-use developer, so our view is that we try to develop destinations, and by destination, we put everything in one place. So within Landmark, as you know, we have recreational, we have residential, we have commercial, we have sort of light industrial, and off that comes many things retail. And so we're sort of balanced, but if I were to say the least content in our real estate is probably residential at this point in time. In 2-3 years' time, if you ask me the same question, I'll say it's probably the largest content of our real estate just because of some of the developments we're doing now.
Yeah, was that on purpose, Paul, to go more into recreational and industrial side of it, i.e. the commercial side than the residential in Nigeria? Was that on purpose?
Yes, absolutely 100%. So we're creating a destination, and most people judge real estate by the square meter or the square foot. So the unit economics of real estate is usually the square foot or the square meter. Our unit economics is footfall, is the number of people that come. So our job is basically to bring as many people to our destination as possible. keep them there as long as possible by making sure they enjoy themselves, and then make them spend enough money.
Gotcha.
And then go away and tell other people about it. And so we created the recreational leisure platform as well as the retail platform. The office platform was to give it sort of stability of income. The residential platform comes last because it makes the area or the destination a lot more attractive for residential development. If we brought it in first, we would have sold it relatively cheap and then created the cheaper things later. So I felt that was the wrong way around. So there's a strong reason why residential is last.
Yeah, Paul, I want to ask you that same question because I love the answer and I think I want to hear it again, right? So what you're essentially saying that if you do residential first, the income is not as we say multipliable than if you did the ads-on. If you did the bring them in, keep them in, let them spend, and then go tell everyone else. Is that what you did with the landmark, the one at the beach? Is that what you did? It's got everything in there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we did. So you have a big multiplier effect if you bring a residential in last. So you sell it at multiples of what you would have sold it, or you rent it out at multiples, and it's a lot more attractive. So real estate works on two things. It works on how much money you can rent a place for, right? And how much money you can rent a place for, and how long or how much the people who are there spend.
Gotcha.
So that's quite important.
Okay, yeah. So I've taken that as a strategy as well. So if I'm building, say, a duplex in, say, Port Harcourt, I want to look, quote unquote, for something commercial to attract people in. If I just go residential early, I might not get the most bang, depending on location, of course. But I hear what you're saying, so yeah.
Yeah. So effectively, if you can't create the environment around it, then make sure you buy it or build it in an environment that already has those things that other people have created.
Gotcha. So Paul, let's talk about funding, right? I know your portfolio. I don't know if you can give us the numbers of the assets of your portfolio, but it's huge. When you wanted to basically start out, how did you fund this? Was it a bank loan? Did you do private equity? Did you get investors to come and buy equity and like angels? How did you fund this empire that you now have?
I like the word empire. So if it indeed becomes an empire, I'll be grateful. So they say funding is when you start a business. There are very few ways you can fund it, especially if you have no asset base, and it's very difficult to go to the banks. So I did the normal thing, FFFA, family, friends, fools, and angels. No fools just before people jump on me. Just family, friends, and angels. So I had family, a lot of friends, and a lot of angels. My old boss gave me a significant amount of money. I managed to borrow some money from the banks. I think somewhere along the line, 22 years ago, I put together something in the region of about $1.5 to $2 million. Is how it kicked off. But believe me, of that, say it was $1.5 million, I probably burnt 75% of it on what I didn't need. So there are many lessons you learn.
Like what, Paul? Let's go into that. Like what? Like, I mean, what does that mean?
So,
were you buying personal assets or regulatory costs? What was that?
Yeah, so no, not buying personal assets at all. It was all focused on the business. So it's just the way, without experience in business, you tend to look at business from a different scope. So advertising, for instance, how you go to your market is probably, the thing that turns a bad business into a good business or an ordinary business into a great business is your access to the market. It's just telling people you're there. Now, the eyes you look at a business when you haven't done that business before, you believe everybody's like you. So you may believe, for instance, people read newspapers, so I'm going to advertise in the newspapers, or people watch TV, so I'm going to advertise on TV. And you can spend lots of money on a lot of advertising mediums and you won't get your market. Sometimes the traditional door knocking market may be better. So I would say I probably burnt half of my money on the wrong advertising channels. The next thing is you probably spend a lot of money on equipment that you don't need. So you may think, you want to start perfect. So let's assume you're an author, you want to start an writing business. You think, I need this super duper laptop, I need this phone, I need this great camera. And so you buy all these things and you realize that you don't actually use them, right? You don't use them all to their full potential. You could have bought things that were a lot less. So I would say that, it's always good when you start a business to feel the business, work it through before you start spending the money. Spend the money on the things that you have no choice. So in my instance, real estate's about location. Find out where the people are get there first. Find out where the people are going and get there first. So if you want to do real estate, the best thing you want to spend your money on is the land or the property that you're buying. Ignore all the other things that you think will help you. So once you do that, you can begin to figure out how you access your market.
That's key learning points. We dived over. That's a key learning point for us. So we want to spend on the essentials to start the business. Paul, I got that in. So let's continue to what you were talking about your funding, right? So you raised about the 1.5 or so. So continue from there, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah. So I raised about 1.5. I wasted probably at least one. As I said, I got it from a variety of sources, including my old boss. And then I started trying to build value. And what I mean by build value is build the things, not that I like, but things that the outside world will endorse. And try and get clients that will endorse you. So once you get clients that endorse you and you build enough value, then other people sort of start paying attention. It enables you to attract bank loans. It enables you to go into the angel market. Dare I say, you may even go into the sort of private equity market. But you scale these things slowly. But the key thing is to build the brand. So that's what I did. I'm not even going to pretend. We were lucky in many aspects. So telling the right corners at the right time. And so there's a lot of that. But the key thing is to just make sure you build a brand. And you remain reliable, because what they say, opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in the world if you just remain reliable. Because the reliability is again an opportunity.
So I have excellence as a currency and be reliable. I have those two down as quotes from Paul. But Paul, I want to just dive deeper into you build value by getting clients that basically give you that, should we say, confidence. So others would look at the client list that you have, and then they did business with you. And you said you were then able to approach the banks because you had these clients already on your books. You want to talk more about that? I mean, I'm talking to a guy in Lagos that wants to get into real estate. I would normally go to the bank and build a house, right? You are basically saying raise family and friends equity, build this business, be reliable, have your proof of work, then raising funds become a lot easier for you.
Absolutely. It's so important to just show people you're good. I often say be a good person. There are lots of opportunity and not a lot of competition. Just being good, right? So be good, be sincere, be honest. Remain faithful to some of those principles. Fairness, decency, integrity. Those old-fashioned principles that we used to hear when we were growing up. They're real currencies, and I think it's so important to do that. And when I talked about buying things that you don't need, there's a common saying. They say if you buy things you don't need, you soon have to sell things that you actually do need. Ooh. So in business, whether it's real estate or otherwise, one thing I learned growing up was try to avoid buying things to impress people you don't know. Spend your money on buying things that you need, so that you can multiply them and you can make them.
Are you saying don't fake it till you make it in business? I mean, if I had an office space in Ikoyi, I'm trying to attract the Ikoyi crowd.
Yeah.
So should I do that? I mean, if I want to I do finances, right? I'm targeting a high net worth individual. I want to have my office in Ikoyi. Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely. I spent, when I set up, the first thing I did was I looked for where all the embassies were, where all the five-star hotels were, because I was going to cities I didn't know, and then I put the pin in the map where most of those things gathered, and I bought into a very expensive real estate because I was trying to attract a certain crowd. But that's part of the brand building, so you have to decide who you are, who your crowd is, who your potential market is, and build the brand directly towards that. Don't chase too many people. You can't say, look, my market is for the fish sellers and my market is also for the Rolls Royce owners. You just couldn't do that in business. You have to decide your market segment and die there, right? So if you're chasing people in Ikoyi, then go to Ikoyi and buy property in Ikoyi. What I'm saying is, if you buy property in Ikoyi, don't buy a big Mercedes to take you there.
I hear you, Paul. Makes sense. So we've done the raise capital. We've done how you added value. Do you want to go on that trend? I'm really interested in how when we went to the banks. At what stage of this process did you go to the banks? I mean, your boss gave you a big chunk of money. That doesn't sound like a debt. It sounds more like equity. At what point in building this real estate empire did you then have to go to the banks?
So I went quite early, by the way, because I already had bank relationships from my former life, right? And from where I'd worked and stuff, and I'd been at banks decently. So I went very early, and depends on the country you're in. Obviously, when I started business, I was in London, so there was access to sort of seed capital, seed finance from banks. Banks were prepared to do it at low interest rates, guaranteed by the government. Obviously, in Nigeria, it's not as pleasant. So in Nigeria, you have to do a lot faster before you go to the banks. Now, the time I went back to the banks after the first time, so when my other boss gave me money, it was at the same time I went to the banks, so I put all that money together. But that was very early days in the life cycle of my business. When I got into Nigeria, so 2003, 2004, we're talking about bulge, big bracket stuff. And when I found the site I wanted to buy, I had to go to the bank, and the site cost me $17 million. I didn't have anything close to that, right? So I went to a variety of banks, and the lessons I learned there were, just make sure you get your documentation right, make sure you get your vision right. There are a lot of obstacles, and a lot of people don't necessarily believe what you want to do. But the important thing is that you've got to believe it yourself. You've got to be passionate about it, and you've got to have the staying power, and you've got to basically be able to challenge the boundaries of pain, right? So once you have that in your mind, so all that is in the mind, so you now have to convey that to a piece of paper and take it to a third party that doesn't know you. That's how you test it. And don't be afraid. If you don't like the answer, never ask the question. So don't be afraid of being refused. Many people just say, "Oh, banks will never give me money." You ask 10 banks, you go away. But that's not how life is. I think you eventually get a break, and that's what happened to me.
I like that point. Yeah, I like the point about testing with a third party. So if you build this dream, you've branded, you've positioned, it's ultimately going to be a third party that's going to tell you, yes, what you've done is good, and you went to the banks and you were able to get money. I also like the way that you said abroad, it's easier to get financing than in Nigeria. So yeah, so let's continue, Paul. So what else happened? You got financing from the banks. You already bought land in the high-end location was taken care of, the embassies and the high place. What else happened? I'm trying to get the secret sauce, Paul. If you notice, I want to get that secret DNA from you on how you built this, right? So I'm taking notes, right? I know everyone else is taking notes. Lots of comments on Twitter. We just want to learn from you, right? See what you did right, so we can go back and try to implement this. What else did you do that was, material?
So if I were to bullet point this, and it's very hard to really figure out the things that starts your journey to success. But if I were to bullet point it, I would say I did my apprenticeship for a start, right? I knew a lot about the business I was going into across the globe, right? And I knew every end of it. So I did my time. So you have to have knowledge. So I would say that's the first secret. Many people will just jump into stuff because other people are doing it, or they hear it sounds good. Right. So the second thing I would say is I started the business. Whatever it is you want to do, just start it. Figure out a way to start it. So without anybody else. So I had a way of starting it. I had to sort of get an office, kit it out. My wife paid my bills at the time because I put everything I had into it. So you had to feel that sort of pain, right? I'm trying to remember the term. About entrepreneurship. They say, a student said this to me. I taught in London Business School for a couple of years after I finished my MBA. And the student said this to me when we did an entrepreneurship class. I asked the question, what's entrepreneurship? And he said, entrepreneurship is living your life in a way that very few people are prepared to do today, right? So you can live your life in a way that very few people will be able to tomorrow, right? Yeah, and what he basically meant was, feel the pain, challenge the boundaries of that pain, try to pursue success without excuses, take personal responsibility to achieve your highest potential, make that commitment to break all your limits, and with that, there's a lot of pain. So I would say that's the second thing. I just felt I had to feel the pain to get any kind of gain, right? The third thing is just branding. I felt it was important to be honest with your brand, to decide what your brand is, to do everything. If it didn't tick the brand box, I didn't do it. So if it didn't make people think this is a good organization, I just didn't do it. So I think the brand is important. The fourth thing would be documentation, just to make sure that the documentation that you have is great. People see it and it has a wow factor. Gotcha. So when you do a business plan, just make sure it looks good, so it actually tells the story of the dream that you're dreaming. And then after that, you set out to sort of raise funds from third parties, whether they're families, friends, or angels, right? And when you set out to raise funds, just make sure you're funded enough. There's never really enough, but make sure you're funded enough to build yourself a 12-month cash flow, right? Because
why 12 months?
Because it's a sizable time. In some businesses it may be 24, in others it may be 6. I like to say 12 because some along the line we count our lives in years, right? And you need a long time. If you think it would take 3 months, it probably take 6, right? If you think it would take 6, it would probably take 12. So you need to be able to build yourself a cash flow. If you don't make money in 12 months, you're still on your feet. The number one reason why businesses fail is cash. I mean, people say strategy, people, tactics, markets. We can blame everything around the world, but the number one reason that any business fails is it runs out of cash, right? So, and the hardest time in a business is at the beginning. I don't know what the stats are, but I keep on hearing these stats that the number of businesses that fail in the first year, right, are probably 90% of businesses like that. You probably know more of the stats than I do, but I can imagine by a high number. And it's because they run out of cash, right? Or the person championing the business just runs out of nerve, right? So if you have the nerve, then just make sure you have the cash. So I'll say that's a thing. And then lastly, I would say grow in segments. So if I was to figure out what were the things that placed us is, I think we got our brand right. So when we did approach banks and third parties and international investors, and they just liked the brand, they liked the need. I think your business has to be, scalable. It has to be sustainable. It has to meet the need of many. So there's certain boxes that a business must tick if you're going to get other people's money, and you need to make sure you tick those boxes and you publish them well. So I think we did that quite well, and then we had a dream. And those that could key in. So we're not talking about the business as it is today. We're talking about how the business we intend it to be in 5-10 years time, right? And you're sort of looking back 12 months, 24 months, 6 months, and saying, this is what I've done. If I was investing in a business, the first thing I look at is what have you done in the first place? Where are you today? And where do you want to go to, right? And I'll measure where you think you're going to get to with where you've come from. So use your time wisely, right? Because all the days you do nothing, that's why I never like the idea of people moonlighting. Because if you're doing sort of 2 or 3 things at the same time, you never really do any of them that well. But if you hang your coat on one hanger, then you need to make sure that hanger sticks.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the. I mean, Paul, of all your points, right? Apprenticeship stuck out to me, right? Know your onions, get the job done, know what you're talking about, because I can link it back to your boss giving you, should we say, that startup capital and investing in you. That was a sign of him saying, yeah, you did a good job and I trust you to go forward and build something out there. I don't think we talk a lot about entrepreneurship and having that buy-in from the folks that know you from the early stage.
You want me to talk about entrepreneurship and having the buy-in?
No, we're going to talk about that. I'm just talking about the fact that you spoke about that you were passed through your own apprenticeship. You were basically learned the trade and you did all this. You ticked the boxes and you knew what you were doing. I also like the part about branding, right? And my career started off with brand. I understand text, colors, having a good correspondence, adverts, and all that. But when you say branding, just so that we are clear, what are you talking about? If you're talking to a Nigerian entrepreneur, I want you to link that branding right back to how the business should operate. You've already made a point. You said if you're in Ikoyi and you're targeting that demographic, be in Ikoyi, but don't drive the Benz. Don't buy the unnecessary add-ons. But just to speak more about branding and how branding can actually help you achieve your business goals. If you could just talk a bit on that.
Okay, so firstly, I suppose the first thing to do is define what I mean by branding. So I'm not thinking of nice colors and a nice swanky name and a good logo. I'm thinking of how does the market perceive you. So branding is if someone calls your business or comes to your business, what do they think of your business? How do they actually perceive it? Do they think of you as an honest business? Do they think of you as an emerging business? Do they think of you as a problem-solving business? Do they think of you as an excellent customer services business? I mean, how does the market actually see you, right? Or do they think, oh, well, it's mediocre, but I'm looking for something cheap, so we'll go there, right? So that's what I mean by branding. So you can actually link yourself to the market you want. Yeah. But what branding does is steps up before you step up.
Interesting.
Right, it just shows itself.
I like
right?
that. I like that.
Yeah. So names are important because it's important for names to be catchy. I personally think it's important for names to be non-personal. I believe that my business had a better chance of success when I called it Landmark rather than called it Onwuanibe and Sons, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong, right? But I think so. Names are important, colors are important, logos are important, but they're not as important as what people actually think about you.
So the perception, people have to think of Landmark and something comes to their head. That's the branding we're talking about. You're building.
That's exactly.
Gotcha. So Paul, I'm looking at I'm on your website, right? I've got Landmark Center Owerri. I've got the Watermark Apartments. I've got the Boulevard, the Landmark Hotel. This is a massive portfolio. I'm looking at the guys that do business with you: Marriott, Google, HP, IBM, JP Morgan. It's like, who isn't here, right? So I'm just saying, great job. Just putting it out there. Great job for what you've achieved at such a young age. Someone is asking me lecturing that he didn't know you lectured in London Business School and that you are actually a geek, but he's very, very impressed with that. Same with us.
There's a story to that, by the way.
We'll like to hear it.
Well, I finished my London Business School degree, and I owed about £70,000. This was in the early '90s, by the way, right? So I couldn't pay it. I got a job, but I just simply couldn't pay it. But I had a distinction in my dissertation, so I happened to do quite well in school. So the school called me and said, look, would you want to be a part-time lecturer? And they'll wipe out my debt. So they made me sign a 2-year contract. I lectured for 2 years there. I lectured the MBA class. I did the value chain analysis and entrepreneurship. And it was funny because I was younger than most of the people who I was actually lecturing. But I learned more, by the way, lecturing than I did when I was actually doing my MBA program. Because I learned from my students, yeah. And I lectured some great people, by the way, household names that you hear today.
Oh, excellent. That's good to know, Paul. Good job. I didn't know that. So thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah. All right. So Paul, just the last, so like to talk about real estate last time. If you had to do this again in Lagos or in the West, where would you do it?
Lagos, every day of the week.
Lagos. All right, good. Great. All right, Paul, let's just talk generally about the economy. Housing deficits in Nigeria. To put it mildly, Paul, there are no affordable homes in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Abuja, as the three main cities in Lagos, in Nigeria. I mean, there's no housing. So there's a big, huge housing deficit, about 26 million units, I understand, about 52 trillion just to close that gap. What's going on? Why can't we get this housing, affordable housing, not the 5-bedroom duplexes, but the 1, 2, 3-bedroom flats? Why is it so difficult for Nigeria to build out like a Festac every year? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, a huge view, by the way, huge view. So it sounds like a simple question, And I suppose a lot of people who become housing ministers think there's a simple answer. Real estate, I was saying to someone the other day, I met a group of young people, and I was saying to him, he was an architect, and I did architecture and stuff. And he said, that after spending 6 years in architecture, that he doesn't really want to do it, but it's the only thing he knows how to do. And I said, look, this is about architecture. It's the study of the relationship between buildings, the built environment, and people. Don't think of it as drawing buildings. Think of it as a study of relationship, and try to go into your memory bank and tap into the things that drew that relationship, right? So when I think of housing, right, it's basically houses are for people, and they're not built just for the sake of it, right? Why is there a big deficit in Nigeria? There are obvious things. So, but I put it down to three things, right? The first is just the ability to build. 90% of what you use to build a building in Nigeria is imported, right? So that in itself creates the first hurdle. It means it will come into the market expensive, right? Because it's imported and then the currency is all over the place.
Correct.
The second thing is that there isn't enough purchasing power to buy a house. If you wanted to buy a house in Nigeria, you have to pay for everything immediately. Right? There's no viable mortgage system, right? So that's the second thing. The second thing is that until there is a viable mortgage system, right, you're always going to have that deficit, or you're going to have people steal it so they can afford to buy these houses, right? And to have a viable mortgage system, you're going to have to, the government's going to have to back it. My understanding is that this is a $50 trillion industry waiting to be tapped.
Correct.
Right. I think you create multiple generational wealth if you can break the mortgage business in Nigeria. But for some reason, nobody's long term enough to want to do it. Right. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is government subsidy. Is what the government feel is the best way currently is that they just subsidize the use, right? The supply end, the demand end of housing. So what they do is they give people money, right? People don't use the money to buy houses. People use the money to buy food to eat, send their children to school, health, stuff like that, right? To have a viable housing industry, you have to subsidize the supply end. So you have to go in there and say, I want to create a bunch of social housing, and I'm going to subsidize that throughout the value chain, from the land to the building of it, to the managing and the maintenance of it. So people who are low-income families can actually afford to live in a decent way. So I think those are the three challenges, and unless you crack those three challenges, the problem is that the way Nigeria as a country is run by its leaders, these three things are all in different sectors of government, right? So you have one minister or a whole ministry involved in the finance bit, another ministry involved with sort of ports or importations, another ministry involved with sort of construction, another ministry involved with subsidies. So and these ministries don't all talk to each other. So to solve this problem, there needs to be a one unit that's able to pull all these things together and deal with these things in a more compact way.
Yeah, I think well said, Paul. Well said. It's a lot of things, like long-term finance, and I think is the only thing we have solved more or less in quote with the pension reform that we have about, I think it's about, what's the figure now? 13 trillion or so in long-term savings by Nigerian workers. I think that's the only part we've solved. The mortgage part we've spoken about. What about the Land Use Act? We haven't talked about that. That is just going to lock in and not allow mortgages to be equitable, should we say, in Nigeria. The importations part of it, if you want to build a Festac, door handles, roofing, tiles, all that kind of stuff. So I hear you, but I'm just worried that if we don't get our arms around housing creates jobs, it soaks up cash from the system, so it stops this local inflation, right? It's just a low-hanging fruit. Even if we're just to say we're going to clear out land and people like you go build homes, even if you do something as simple as that, that would help, right?
No, absolutely. But I don't think. So I agree entirely with you, by the way. But I don't think the people who make decisions actually agree. Otherwise, I would have done it. So even the point you mentioned about the pension reform and the amount of money now that's in store, you can't even apply that money, right, into housing. A lot of that money is going into other things. And the reason why is that they created so many high hurdles, right? In terms of, so if you're applying to housing, you can then apply into a listed company, right? And you know that Nigeria is a DIY enterprise. How many companies are listed? How many property development companies are even listed? Maybe 3 or 4 across the entire country. So they have no access to pension funds, right? So unless the pension funds subsidize the supply end, you're going to have issues. So you're right. There are people who are obviously wiser than us that think there's a different way to solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean,
So far it hasn't happened.
the numbers are crazy. Numbers are crazy. If we just wanted to build, give or take, about 700,000 homes, just that, right? That's about 3.5 trillion minimum. But let me give you a data fact. From when Nigeria was created, 1960 till today, the federal, state, and local government have not built up to 500,000 homes combined in Nigeria. From 1960 till today, the federal, state haven't, and I'm including Lagos State, So you just wonder what happened, Singapore, tiny Singapore, right, has done give about 686,000 homes. South Africa, 2.3 million homes. This was in 13 years. South Africa built 2.3 million homes in 13 years under their reconstruction development plan. You go to those homes like in quote unquote Soweto, they're like basic, but people have a home with power, with roof and all that. So you just wonder every year with housing for all, but nothing seems to happen. So when I see folks like you in that space, I'm just saying if you were made the minister of housing, what are the 2 big policy goals you would advocate for? We're not going to build all those homes in 10 years, but what bottlenecks do you think are in the way and should just go away?
Well, so I'll do 3 things. I'll make sure that there's a link between money and housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole long-term finance, I'll link it to housing to make sure it's available to the housing environment. The second thing I'll do is I'll actually count it, right? We talk about this housing deficit. Some people think it's 17 million, some people think it's 30 million. I just by looking at it, I think it's probably 50, 60, 70 million. There are 200, maybe 210 million people in Nigeria, which means that probably best part of 70, 80 million families. Now, if you tell me that there are 60 million homes in Nigeria, I'll say no, there aren't, right? So I think the housing deficit is a lot more, right? So you need to know what the problem is to tackle it and where that problem is. So I'll count it. I'll figure out what exactly is the problem, where is the deficiency, right? And who are the people able to meet this deficiency? And I'll find a way to engage with the private sector to create a social housing company which I can subsidize at source, right? And create a plan, right, to build 500,000 homes a year and make sure they go to the right people. So I'm not even going to pretend it's an easy job because it's getting out of hand. But if you don't know the size of the problem, you can't solve the problem. And if you don't make it easy for the money to get to it, then people are not interested. The private sector is not interested. Anything the government does never really works. So you have to get the private sector involved if you're going to do it. And then after that, I'll start dealing with all the other things, right? You need to train people, in the building industry to actually build this thing. You need to have more things local. You need to release this reliance on importation and initially make it easier to bring things in, but create your local industry. To create that local industry, you need power. And we all know the problems of power in Nigeria. So there are quite a few things that need to be done. The education system has to be better, right? So you actually have these people who can build the property. So, as a developer, I would like to say, we are Africans building in Africa for Africans, right? But that was my motto before 10 years ago, and I realized it's not possible. I had to start importing people to help. But I then realized, if you're going to import people, and what I mean by import people is bring people who live outside Nigeria to come and work in Nigeria, then you're bringing the diaspora back because you're bringing people who have not just the knowledge and the experience and the exposure, but they also have the social and economic etiquette to figure out what it is that creates success. Success has many fathers, so it spreads. I think it's important to try to find a way to train our population better. Right, we have the hardest working people in the world. I haven't worked in so many places. Nigeria has the hardest working people in the world, but we need to turn some of that hard work, make it more efficient and more productive.
I hear you, Paul. I mean, I was on a committee a long time ago with the PFAs, with the banks. The guys in ASO used to be like a property company out in Abuja. They brought everyone that was involved in housing, the government, the private sector, the regulators. Everybody was in a room in a conference, right? And at the end of the day, we all agreed that we should link the RSA, the retirement savings accounts, with housing. And that happened. That was when we had Chinelo as the DG of PENCOM. So right now, PENCOM allows you, there's a provision in there somewhere that allows you to use a part of your pension funds for affordable housing. The rollout, I'm not yet sure. But there was also another suggestion to allow PFAs, i.e. the pension fund administrators that hold these funds, to do direct investing. So it means the PFA could invest directly in Landmark and say, want to build affordable housing in, say, oil, want to build 2,000 units. We're investing in you directly, either as a bond or as a PE instrument. You are not going to have to create the PE or yourself, but you're going to be the one to run with the fund that the PFA will give you. Direct investing, not the PFA investing in the paper that you have created. I think that would work. I think that would allow you to focus on what you do, which is development, allow the PFA to focus on what they do, which is investing, and then everyone wins. What's your point?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Spot on.
So I mean, but Paul, let me just ask you a question. You brought in the Hard Rock Cafe to Nigeria. Hard Rock Cafe. If I was going to bring in Hard Rock Cafe, how did you do it? One thing I want to just basically combine all what you've taught us today, right, into an actual, right? How did this happen? Did they call you? Did you call them? Did you say, hey, you guys come to Lagos, or were they when they come to Lagos and you already had a place for them? I'm trying to figure out how this works to get a marquee name to be on my client list. How does that work for you?
So it's an interesting question. It's hard to pinpoint one thing, but I think early in our conversation, you read a list of some of our clients. And I spoke at the top of our conversation a lot about brand. And I say brand is so important. And when you know your brand has been successful is when people know it before they meet you, right? So because we wanted to create a retail precinct, we had certain targets in terms of organizations to bring that we felt resonate with Nigeria, or with the location in Nigeria we wanted. And Hard Rock was one of them. So I went to different Hard Rocks around the world and spoke with Hard Rock and convinced them that this was a decent destination. The country was a decent destination. I wasn't selling myself, right? And then at some point they sent someone down to come and have a look. I remember the day I was going to meet this guy. He was at Lagos Boat Club. And they called me, and I was meant to meet him at a certain time, 7 p.m. And I left a little bit late. I left about 6:30, and there was incredible traffic. And I knew I wouldn't make it. And he told me he was going to leave in about an hour. So I remember jumping out of my car and jumped onto a bike and dashed over. Now, as a rule, I never really used bikes because, for those of you who've used bikes in Lagos, you know how dangerous they are. This was sort of make or break, so I had to go outside my comfort zone. I did that. Sat down with him at the Lagos Boat Club, and he was actually looking at a site near the yacht club, which was just further down the road. So I knew I had to convince him to come and see our site, which was literally just a piece of land on the waterfront. And it required some vision to see whether it would work. But the good thing is that he had read about us and he had known about us a little bit. And all I had to do was try to convince him that this site I was showing him was likely to be a lot better than the site he was going to see. That was one. Two is I had to convince him with the right kind of partners. Anybody coming to Nigeria, there's certain things that in their mind, they think that, well, be careful so you don't get defrauded. Be careful because a lot of people would promise and won't deliver. So I made him frightened enough, but happy enough to trust us that there was something there. And after that, I went to see his bosses and to convince his bosses to come. And when they did, we signed off. But we had to stake a lot to do it because I said, look, they don't pay me anything, right? I will do everything. I'll build everything. I just need to sign on this dotted line and we'll time it. So I said, sign a contract. If I did this, you would do this, right? And as long as I did it before X date, you would stay in the game. So after that was race against time.
Interesting. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, great insight there. I like these personal stories when you tell, because you say a lot by just saying it, and I learn a lot from you just saying how you got on a Makata. I'm trying to imagine Paul on a Makata. I can't picture it yet, but it'll come to me. Yeah. So Paul, yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So I mean, Paul, we've been speaking for an hour, believe it or not, for an hour, right? Let me talk about, or more. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. You're a judge on the Nigerian Lions. Did I get that correct? You're a judge on that show, where you guys basically, people come to you, they have a pitch, and you invest. Tell me about it, please. I'm interested. In terms of how do you approach when a guy comes in front of you and says, I have this idea, how do you assess if that idea he's telling you is going to work? What do you see?
Yeah, so for the people on the call, if you've watched Shark Tank in the US or Australia, or you've watched Dragon's Den in Europe or in the UK, and Lion's Den is the same thing. So it's a platform or a place where audacious entrepreneurs come to the battleground of business to pitch their ideas for a cash investment from what purportedly is 5 experienced entrepreneurs. And you have 3 minutes to do the initial pitch, and each session lasts for about 20 to 30 minutes of questions and answers. So the first thing is that you have to have your game together. You've got to know your market. You've got to know what this business is. You've got to understand your numbers. You've got to be able to tell a story, and this is the same brand story I say. And when investors look at you, they're thinking of 3 things. They're thinking, can I invest in this guy right in front of me? Is he or she investable? The second thing is this business scalable? Can this business really create either generational wealth or global game changing? Yeah? Can it change the game globally, or can it create wealth? Depends on what you're investing for. But is it scalable? Is it bankable? And does it meet the needs of many? Right. So if you look, most of the game-changing businesses or generational wealth business that we've built, tick those boxes: scalable, sustainable, meeting the needs of many, right? And then the people who started need to know how to tell their story. So I just stay faithful to those principles and listen to those things and make my mind up very quickly. So for people on this platform that have watched it, they would, many people would say that I'm probably a little bit too direct. Because
who are you in Shark Tank? Who are you on Shark Tank? Are you more of Kevin, or are you just trying to figure that out?
So people say I'm like Kevin, but so I'm on the platform where many people are trying to be nice and trying to give hope, and I think that's a good thing, right? But I think people learn more by what they got right or what they got wrong directly, and it's such a short time. So I say it as it is. I remember after one of the episodes, my mom even calling me and saying I need to be nice because I know someone produced something, which I thought was actually a great idea. But I think it was one of those ideas that was yesterday's idea rather than tomorrow's idea. But more importantly, it didn't look nice, right? And I said, look, I know people say don't judge a book by its cover, but the truth is everybody judges books by the cover, right? So the cover first of all needs to be nice, and then the stuff needs to be future proof. So you're in the midst of COVID and you're talking about a solution to COVID, but that time was running out. So it's fine. One of the things I've been impressed by the way, is and I really do feel the future in Nigeria is fairly secure. Some of these young people, they've got great ideas. They have good delivery technique. I was actually humbled by the intelligence, the innovation, the articulation of those ideas, the bravery and the pain that some of these people have gone through. And I just wish I was like that in my youth. I don't think I had the same level of rigor, intelligence, and articulation when I was that age. To stand up in front of 5 solo people and deliver almost a perfect presentation. So a lot of people have done quite well, and it just tells me that there's something there. But there's a saying, right, that good ideas are common, right? But what's uncommon are the people who are prepared to work hard enough to deliver and execute those ideas. And I think that's the problem, is that gap between idea and execution that we need to bridge in Nigeria to make it a better country.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, so Paul, nearly 300 listening. I think it's time to reset the room. I've got 2 guys waiting to speak to you, Christian and Niger. Remember, guys, if you want to ask Paul a question, send a DM to myself or Bianuju. She's right up there as a co-host, and I will let you speak. So, Paul, I'm just going to take a few guys and maybe you want to talk or ask you a question. I've got Christian first. So, Christian, Paul, you can unmute, and Paul is right here. Go for it.
All right. Good evening, all. Very, very humbled to be here. Paul is someone I have been listening to, especially in terms of real estate market in Nigeria, because he builds, of course, a misuse kind of business, and it entails a lot of metrics and a lot of things to get it on. And I must really say this, Mr. Paul is a very humble person, and he loves Nigerian youth because he shares undiluted facts, knowledge, and we are really waiting for a master class. Okay, so my question is, I'll just go direct to it. My question is, if I were in the den, okay, because I started looking into real estate syndication, what are the kind of partnerships that I would have to be able to leverage funds and build equity in asset management, especially real estate. So if I were in the den and I was in front of you teaching a real estate syndicate, what numbers will you look at in my work to be able to grant me the depth that I need to be able to go out there and purchase real estate? And of course, put it into the market to start generating cash flow.
Thank you, Christian. So when you say what numbers, you mean financial numbers?
Yes. My presentation.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll try to understand whether you have a good grasp of real estate. So I'll try to figure out how much it costs you to produce what you want to produce, and how much you intend to sort of sell it for. And I will draw a link between those numbers. So that'll be the first thing I'll look for is your understanding of cost. Then the second thing I'll look for is your understanding of time, how long it will take you. Because I said earlier that real estate is a natural hedge, or inflation is a natural hedge to real estate. But the biggest cost of real estate is time, right? Because if it takes you so long to do it, then you borrow money for longer. Your income comes much later, and people just generally get tired along the line, right? So I'll try to figure out whether you can do it in the shortest possible time. So I'll be looking at your time numbers. And then the third thing, which is more quantitative than quantitative, is quality. Because real estate is about time, cost, and quality. So I'll look at what parts of the market you're backing at, and your understanding of that market, and where you get that market from. And if you were in the den, I would want to know whether you already have sold something, and whether you have a market and how you intend to access that market. So those would be the sort of 3 or 4 things I would look at first.
Well, thank you very much, sir. That's
Paul, that was an MBA class right there.
Very, very, very solid what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So please, okay, I'll just drop one more question. It's about this
real quick.
Partners, general partners. Yes, it's about limited partners, general partners. So I know this can work in some business where the limited partner is going out there making decisions for the company, while the general partner, they are involved in business through funding and all of that. But what ratio do you think is a better combination? Is it an 80-20? Is it what number would you very confident put to come in at if you were a general partner?
So if I was a GP, Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, Carl will probably have a better insight than I would. But if I was a if I was a GP, I would basically I'll be looking at the sort of 50-50. I like mirrors. I like alignment, and I like to see what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So when I form partnerships, I like to see equality.
Okay, sir. That would be my question. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, excellent questions, Christian. Thank you so much. So I'm going to have Niger's speaker next. Thanks for waiting, sir, on mute for a while. So just Niger's speaker, you can unmute and ask your question. That's GO2. How you doing?
Thank you so much, for your elaborate expose into the world of real estate. It was quite informative and quite interesting as well. Like you said, I listened carefully because when I heard the word landmark, I had to go check because the word landmark, when you hear it in Nigeria, there's something that just comes to your name. I think it's the Onwuanibe that comes to your name because they probably have established businesses in and I've tagged them landmark. So but the word landmark is quite very, very good. You stated emphatically that you had not invested first into residential real estate. So my question is this: for those in the diaspora, like one of the things you said when you were speaking, I live in the diaspora, I live in the United States, I live in the United Kingdom. You said it's very difficult to harness stuff or ideas here and get people to support you mainly because everything you're thinking of, somebody has actually thought of it and the system probably would not support you. But like you said, Africa or Nigeria is a very fertile ground to lay seeds, and those seeds will grow with time. The very typical example is what you did with Hydro Cafe, right? So for those in diaspora willing to invest into real estate, because I had a very turbulent encounter with a particular group of company called, I think, Adron Homes. Yes, that's what they call them. And the initial sum we paid, I think I paid the initial sum of about 2 or 3 million naira. Then they had some fees which they outlined on their website because I live here, and I just thought, okay, instead of probably going through 1 or 2 persons who I think I know, why don't I go to people who are real estate developers, pay them the money, pay the fees, and do my deal and get the lands or the homes in question. So I discovered that there was a whole lot of hidden fees which were not stated initially. And that goes to the question, or that goes to the point which you made, is stick to the old term family values, which is trust and reliability. When people are not able to trust you, in the end, all right, I ended up doing the deal with them, but the land I sold it off because I didn't want to be intertwined with them because they said they had it's a different architectural plan to pay for that architectural plan which they proposed for that estate which they were proposing at that point. I paid the initial fees. Then they said, oh, okay, the plan had changed. I asked them, how would the plan change within when I paid and now? And they said, oh, okay, there's going to be a different design which has been adopted. So I need to add extra fees, So it was a very messy thing because, when you're in diaspora and you have people having to come back asking for money. So now, you said there were 2 things you really engage in, that is leisure and office spaces. Of course, I understand leisure because for those of us in diaspora, most of the time,
so I'm going to make you ask a question.
So it's good to make money. But you said residential is leased. So I was thinking when were you going to key into residential real estate, because the truth of the matter is, whether you like it or not, a whole lot of people back in diaspora, they want avenues or people or companies just like yours, like Landmark Africa, which they can trust, put in money, get what they want, no hidden fees, is straight to the point. I don't know how quick are you expanding to that from, because as much as we have, I just bought my first home in the United Kingdom, and as much as we want to have homes here, right, in the diaspora, we also want to, invest in Nigeria because we know that we won't have homes in Nigeria.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Yeah. I think Paul, he's asking. I think Paul, that's what everyone's asking. They want someone they can trust in Nigeria, they can invest with to build residential homes. So,
absolutely, it's a very big issue there. So no, I understand entirely. So I mean, you've made 3 points. So one is the experience you had, and unfortunately, many people have that experience at least more than once, right? Where they use untrusted parties. So the first thing I'll say is always look for transparency and authenticity, right? And what I mean by that is a company that puts everything out there on the table before you sign up, and then authenticity. So you've checked it. Other people have had good experiences. They say do something in a way that nobody else can. So when people are compelled to talk about you, right, they go out there and they talk good about you. And I think that's important. I would never do business with a company I've never heard of, right? Or when I ask about them, nobody knows them. Right? Because so that's the first thing. The second thing is sector. So I tried to explain, and maybe I wasn't 100% clear, that in terms of sectors, really, I mean, if I was in diaspora, and I was looking to invest in the real estate market in Nigeria, I wouldn't look further than residential, because it's the only commodity you can invest in that you can be away and still manage, right? So residential is the commodity I would look for. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm basically saying that if you're a developer, you have other choices, right? Or if you're creating a fund and a portfolio, you have other choices. Then the third thing was about landmark. So we have a residential sector of our business, and we have done some residential. And the biggest development we're doing now is actually residential. So we're putting up a 30th floor, effectively, I'll call that a skyscraper in Lagos, because it will be the third tallest building in Lagos by the time it's finished. And it's a fully residential building, and there are 300 apartments in the building. So we are selling off plan our residential space. What I said was that we chose residential last because we felt it was the glue in the real estate. We wanted to create an environment that made the residential worth its while, to make the residential more valuable. So when people like you come and say, I want to invest in a residential building, an apartment, there's just so much more available in our ecosystem. And it makes our residential apartment a lot more attractive than one in the middle of nowhere. So hopefully that sort of answers your question.
Well, any idea of the cost of this 30 for this? Something I can afford. I mean, showing us on for
Yes, it's affordable. And what I would say, I mean, obviously we've priced it in a way that it's reasonably affordable, but I would say it's cheap. But they say that value, right? Cost is forgotten long time after the value stays in there, right? So we think it's valuable. There's apartments that range from studio apartments all the way to 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom penthouses,
Gotcha.
and the starting point is about $100,000.
Gotcha. To buy, yes. Okay, not bad. All right, cool. And we can get a mortgage and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, maybe we can get
Yes.
Okay, so Paul, I got two questions from you from the DM. Carl Ken, I think you might know him, is asking you, what's your opinion on the future of real estate as it integrates with the rapidly developing tech, i.e. blockchain, Bitcoin, all that sort of stuff? How are we going to integrate real estate? Could you have any thoughts on that? And then I have a young man also asking you, man like OC, is asking for a young guy trying to get into real estate development right now in Nigeria with all what's going on, the current economic climate. Do you have any advice for him if he wants to get in? Like, I know you've said a lot about your onions, and you really have given us a masterclass, but do you have any specific answer for Mike like OC and for Carl Ken talking about blockchain and real estate?
Okay, so definitely technology has a place. I know Carl Ken very well, and Carl Ken was right at the beginning of the landmark story, so I'm sure he'll be smiling. Technology has a big place in real estate, right? And real estate is one of those traditional industries that hasn't really embraced technology. I believe that one of the key things that one needs technology for real estate is to make it come quicker, right? Accessible to the public faster and more seamlessly, and just make it easier to purchase. And there are many ways technology can help. So technology can help in the supply chain. Technology can help with the value chain. technology can help in sales and marketing, technology can help in building and engineering, in construction, in designing, in sales.
Yeah.
And I've been reading a lot and listening a lot about the metaverse and stuff. So virtual real estate as well is a big place there where you can mirror physical real estate. So there's no doubt about it. The future is technology in real estate, and the people who are able to adapt their real estate or adapt technology to real estate successfully will be more successful than those who are not.
Gotcha.
And so I'm very much a proponent of that. In terms of specific advice, when someone says I want to get into real estate, I first of all need to understand what does that mean. Does it mean like the earlier caller said, I would like to invest in real estate in Nigeria?
No, he's talking about real estate development. I think he wants to go into building as well. He wants to do what you're doing.
Okay, all right. So that's simple. First of all, you've got to decide what part of the market, what sector in the market you want to feed, right? Do you want to be at the low end of the market, the middle market, or at the high end of the market? And then you look for your land opportunities in areas where your market will go to, and you try to produce your real estate at a cost that meets that market and where you want to be. Don't try and chase all markets is the first thing. So be very decisive and very meticulous about the market you want to be in. There are many challenges in real estate in Nigeria, supply chain challenges, regulatory challenges, infrastructure challenges. So you need to make sure you have enough money as well to see through. A half-finished project is the worst thing you can do in real estate because it doesn't yield any income and you spend a lot of money. So a lot of real estate developers, that's basically the burial ground. So I would say think of how much money you have, do your cash flows properly, do your numbers well, and target the specific market you want.
Okay, man like OC, I hope you heard those points there. Paul, I do have a question for you, right? In terms of raising money from Nigeria, like on the open market, maybe doing a REIT or doing a public offer, is that in your contemplation anytime soon?
Yes, so we've done many, right? The REIT market in Nigeria is not as developed as one would like it. So very few REITs have been successful or liquid enough in Nigeria to be successful. But we've raised the bond, and so we've used public money, and from a debt basis, we're literally in the process of doing a private placement, and obviously in the near-term future we will list. So going into the public market is a good way to expand your horizons, just in terms of attracting enough capital to do what you want. But I would always say before you go into these markets, you need to be sure of your income lines, and you need to be sure of the bandwidth you have, because there's no point getting money that you can't use. And if you get debt that you can use, you have to make sure you're able to pay it back. So yes, it is in our horizon. We've done a few, and we have private investors and institutional investors in our real estate from other countries, and not just Nigeria. So it's not landmark. It's a collection. It has a collection of different equity owners.
Gotcha. Just to be clear, you're thinking of a public offer?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Do you have a timeline to that?
Yeah. So in terms of a general market flotation, we're probably looking at 2-3 years. Right, but we're in the midst of a private offer right now. So over the next 3-4 months, that will yield.
Interesting. Okay, great, good job. So I have another question here from Ariel Contractors. Sorry, asking, I and my team decided to come into real estate. What advice can you give us in seeking financial investors? We are planning to do a joint venture in Lekki Phase 1. He's talking about raising funds, right? He doesn't get advisory like bullet points or advice you can give him in terms of raising funds for a project. It's residential in nature. So it looks like they want to just see, hey, they want to see what you've done and how can they help. You dropped some nuggets in the past, but maybe they want to hear more.
Okay, so I would say first of all, choose the site carefully. If it's a joint venture, I assume you already own the site, right? And if you don't own the site, then you're the construction guy in the joint venture. So there are only 3 parties in the venture of real estate that actually matter, right? No, make that 4, sorry, right? The guy who owns the land, the guy who builds the property, the guy who actually uses the property, right? So those are the 3. And then the 4th one, I'll say when you make that 4, is the guy who funds it, it's the guy who writes the check. So you have to decide who you are in that value chain, because those are the 4 valuable parties right? Now you could be in one of them, or you could be in all, or you could be in two or three, right? And you need somebody else. So I think you need to be more specific. But I assume, because you said you're a construction company, you want to be the guy that builds it. And in that case, you want to be able to raise the money that builds it, and someone else is going to bring the land. So just make sure, the first piece of advice I'll give you is make sure the land's in the right place, right? So it's successful, right? So you, again, as I said, you have to target a particular market. In terms of building, I've always said, reliability and excellence is the currency in Nigeria. So if you're a contractor, any contractor that's able to build for me and build properly, right, in a world-class way, and do it on time and to the cost that he said he would do it at, will work for us over and over and over and over again. And so as a construction company, I would say just make sure your value is doing whatever you do it well, right? Now with that in hand, if you document that and you take it to any bank, right, or any financial institution, you will definitely get funded. The good thing about Nigeria is, even though it's hard to get money, people actually believe in real estate, right? For the reasons I said earlier, right? It's a big store of wealth, it's a portfolio diversifier, it has strong dividend-based income, and it has a very low correlation. And those things mean that banks, investors, friends and family are always interested in writing checks. But you must have a brand behind you. So you must say, I've done it before and I've done it well. So my advice would be, if you haven't done it before, when you do it for the first time, do it well. If you've done it before, make sure it was done well and document that, and speak to the people who have
and Paul, he's clarifying that he's the builder.
Yes, so I thought so, because it's a construction company. So if he's done it before, then you would hope that he's done it well. Gotcha. And if he hasn't done it before, you would say, then make sure you do it well, do everything you can. They say the only way to predict the future is to help create it. Gotcha. Right? So you need to make sure that you're part of the solution rather than the problem.
You got the floor.
Yeah, okay, thank you for being quite a very detailed session this evening. Okay, so I just have a few questions to ask. I think you had already asked all of them about seeking investors, and hopefully when you come to open up investors opportunities for people to invest, I think of course people like us will be interested in it. But just to ask, I know you talked about that you're more interested in residential, but maybe I would say, how about the lifestyle entertainment bit from real estate? And the reason why I asked this is based on your experience with, I would say, the successful partnership with Hard Rock Cafe. And I'm looking at a Legoland, a Kidzania kind of partnership. And the reason why I say this is, I haven't, of course, I've gone out with my kids and I have to take them to places like Kidzania, which I feel, these are very good places that people you can actually get partnerships with them to set up something like that in Nigeria. But why are investors not looking into that space? And I know, for example, Legoland, find Legoland, even in Dubai, there's Legoland Dubai, and these guys have been able to build the place that you have tourists coming in and spending good money, they're making good money from it. So you see that the government will not be open to such kind of partnerships. So what exactly I really mentioned, because that's something that Nigeria have toyed with for a while now. So what's your thought around it?
Yeah, no, good question. So the first thing I'll say, if you've thought about it, so many other people, right? The issue is just the ability to execute. So even at Landmark, we have a Lego Experience Center. There are all sorts of things in Nigeria that many people don't know about. Some done well, some done not so well, and some done terribly poorly, right? So if you wanted to set up a Kidzania, and I know many people have approached me, is first of all, speak to Kidzania, understand what is required, then come to Nigeria and understand what's required to set it up. The government doesn't really have a big role to play. And the good thing about real estate is that you're more or less autonomous from the government. There's one thing you need from the government, right? Or two things really. One is signing off the land ownership, and then the second thing is giving you the planning permission, right? So if you wanted to do a Legoland or a Kidzania or Disney World, you can very easily do it in Nigeria, and I think it would be extremely successful. but it will cost a lot of money, so you have to raise your money well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why I was thinking, okay, wouldn't the government be open to such partnership, knowing that it's going to be, of course, a revenue generating stream for the state, whichever state it's situated in.
Well, you obviously haven't traded in Nigeria or worked with governments in Nigeria. but I'm sure. Yeah, so I'm sure, well, one day we'll have a government that will be interested. Let's just say for the time being, I think the bread and butter issues that they're focused on. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
So, Paul, I have a question. Someone is asking you a curveball here, right? So he's asking, this is from Ade Koyejo. He's asking, considering the Naira is being devalued, is it advisable that you list Landmark on a foreign exchange or on the Nigerian Stock Exchange? What do you want to say?
Nigerian Stock Exchange every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And the reason is simple. Real estate is local. You can think global, but you have to be local. And the Naira can get devalued as much as it is. At the end of the day, a unit of worth is a unit of worth, right? The 200 million people that are growing that live in Nigeria that have to survive. They have to eat, drink, sleep. They have to go to school, hospital, play, experience. All that's done in Nigeria is not done outside Nigeria. There's maybe 1% of people do it outside Nigeria. It is impossible to invest in real estate in Nigeria and not do well if you do it properly. Because there's a mass market there, right? So you don't have to worry about devaluation. You only worry about devaluation if you're doing something in a market and you're trying to sell it in another market, or you're doing something in another market and trying to bring it to Nigeria. Real estate is going to be consumed in Nigeria. It's going to be built in Nigeria. It's going to be value stored in Nigeria.
Excellent question. Yeah, excellent answer, Paul. Thank you so much. I have Uchenna. Uchenna, if you're here, you can unmute and go ahead and ask your question. Uchenna, can you hear me? Just unmute and ask your question.
I don't think he's here.
He sent me a text that he's here. Okay, so would you have any more questions? I have a few.
No, I think the question about the investment for blockchain.
Okay. Yeah, Paul was answered. Yeah.
I think people responded to that. So, Uchenna wanted to speak, and I told him to send a request, which
yes.
I am yet to put to him. So, I think that's all I have to do.
Okay, I've sent him a request. Uchenna. Yeah, go ahead. I think he's done. Go ahead, Uche.
No, it's not still here. I'm the one talking.
Okay.
I wanted to just ask, in taking the Naira, because he talked about, Mr. Paul just talked about the Nigerian stock exchange more than, taking money from outside or listing in the London Stock Exchange. But I wanted to ask, does it now still mean that it is better to raise the money in Naira than in USD?
Good follow-up, Paul.
Yes, absolutely. If you raise it in USD, you need to make sure it's short term. I mean, just to give you some stats, the US dollar as an interest rate is equivalent to, when you consider depreciation of the Naira, is equivalent to, if you borrow money in US dollars, equivalent to something like a 20 to 25% year-on-year interest, right? So if what you're doing can stomach that in the short term, then go ahead, right? If it can't, then you want to try and raise your money in Naira. Having said that, there's a little curve there in that even if you raise your money in Naira, half of the stuff you're going to buy to build what you're building is US dollar based. Mm-hmm. So you have to find a way to get it back out. So these are some of the challenges.
Yeah, that's a good.
Would it be good to hold the two just in case you want to buy in the market, construction and materials and all of that, and then you can have a mix of this?
Yeah, so hedging is about selling what you're buying, right? So if you raise money in USD, then make sure you're selling in USD, right? If you raise your money in Naira, you can afford to sell in Naira and keep your eye on the dollar. But I don't think you need to be overly complicated. You see a lot of real estate practices, a lot of businesses in Nigeria basically just become currency traders, right? Because they keep their eye on the wrong ball. And that whole Naira dollar thing, whilst it's significant, it's not as significant as people think it is. I think you achieve more success if you focus on just getting right what you're doing and doing it in an excellent way, right? Then there are normal ways to hedge, and I would say obviously hedging has to be part of what you think about, but don't overthink that US dollar naira thing, irrespective of how it's not it's not Zimbabwe, right? It's this hopefully it will never crash like that.
Amen.
But yes,
Inflation is
but it does depreciate, and you're looking at naira losing 15-20% of its value every year. So you factor that into your model.
I think it's a great answer, Paul, and quite interesting. But let me ask you this question real quick, Paul. In your new development, would you accept Bitcoin as payment for a flat in 100,000 Bitcoin, or would you accept cryptocurrency or digital currencies?
No, we won't, and the only reason is that it's illegal.
Okay.
So as you probably know, that Nigeria has made the trading of cryptocurrency illegal.
I have to ask, Paul, because I have that lobby on my spaces. The crypto lobby is on my spaces, so they always want me to ask. So there you go, guys.
Yeah.
I asked. Yeah. Okay, so Paul.
So tell them to lobby the city.
All right, Paul, no problem. So now I have a guy here. He's actually called Paul Leonu. He's asking you, right? What steps or actions are you, Paul, willing to take to improve the technical skill challenges, and how can it improve the real estate value chain? I mean, Paul, we're importing guys from Togo to build POP. Some guys come to do. So, what actions can we take to improve in Nigeria the supply of trained artisans? I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah, so everybody does things in their own way. We employ 4,000 people in Nigeria, right? And there was this time where I took the bulk of them out of the country to Dubai for 1 week, just to learn and appreciate what it means to be excellent. There's no real training there, but if you haven't seen it, you can't repeat it. So we did that, and it cost us a fortune. But I tell you, we're much better for it. And for those of you who have been to Landmark in the last 2 years, would have seen the benefit of it. Many people come and say there's nothing like this in Nigeria. Just the quality and the depth of what has been done. It's not something you often see. So you train in your own way. We also train from a skills, not just the construction skills base, but from a customer services base. And I always say buildings are for people. So how the building is built is important, but how your building is managed, operated, and run is even more important, because buildings are there for life. So the services you offer within those buildings are as important as the bricks and mortar of the building. So we're building a hospitality school. We're training people in terms of customer services delivery. We are home to the Nigerian University of Technology and Management, which is a STEM master's program. So there's a lot of training that's going on, both from a skills perspective, an education perspective, and a customer perspective. But that's our own little dink in the universe. The truth is we're not the government. So we're training people within our own arena.
Paul, that's impressive. That's more than I expected. Very, very impressive, right? Thanks for doing that. So, Paul, a question from Matthew is asking, Paul seems to have his foot in many sectors locally. Has he ever considered healthcare?
Yeah, so that's interesting. My wife is a doctor, my sister's a doctor, some of my closest friends are doctors. So healthcare is important, right, to me from a personal level, just because of that. But I'm heavily invested in the healthcare, by the way. So I both from a time perspective and a financial perspective. So I'm the president of the Federation for Cancer Care for West Africa. I chair the board of trustees. I'm also a partner in a cancer hospital, which is partnered with the Russell Cancer Hospital in New York, which is the oldest cancer institute in the world.
What's the name of the hospital?
Lakeshore Cancer Hospital, and it's partnered with Russell Park Cancer Hospital. I'm also a partner in a primary care medical facility called Dennis Ashley Medical Center, which basically is a chain of centers that delivers primary health care. So health is important, and if apart from point blank real estate, it's definitely my second largest investment.
Gotcha. Excellent, Paul. So thanks for that answer and what you're doing with cancer. Appreciate it. Uchenna, I do not know if you can unmute and speak now. He asked me in the DM that he was here. If you are, you can go ahead. Giving you a second chance. Otherwise, just send me your question via DM and I'll ask Paul. Okay, Paul, I think we can get through to him.
Okay.
Do I see? I just want to make sure if I put him off. All right, Paul, I want to just talk about maybe the mentorship part. I hear you taking guys to Dubai. I want to just talk about that. If you could maybe say that again, just what you were doing in terms of mentorship and that training part. I think you said it a bit too fast. I want to put you to understand what you are doing because I want this to be a thing. I want others to listen to what you're doing, how you're training these young people. Really, I would like you to maybe say it again, how you are training folks to become, job creators and to have these skills. So I would appreciate if you could say it again, please.
All right, so there are two parts of this. So one is the landmark part, which is what I said earlier. And the second part is just a personal mentorship part. So the landmark part is obviously the people who come in and out of landmark, and everybody who comes to landmark. I would like to make sure that during their time at landmark, by the time they leave as a better person, right? And with more knowledge, with more ability, and with more skills and awareness. The things that not many people understand or do, right? Because they just don't know how to, not that they don't want to. So one of the things we did at Landmark, apart from setting up our own training academies within Landmark to just make people better and teach people in different ways and make sure they have more experiences, it occurred to me that many people just haven't experienced excellence, right? And if you haven't experienced excellence, you wouldn't know how to deliver it. Right? Don't expect someone to say thank you if they've never learned the word thank you. Right? It doesn't mean they're not grateful. Right? So what we did at the time, I think it was just before COVID 3 years ago, I took the bulk of my staff to Dubai, to a holiday resort in Dubai. We chartered a couple of planes. We chartered or hired a major resort in Dubai, in Dubai Marina, and stayed for 5 days. And it was like a holiday. There was no intensive courses or lessons or anything. It was a holiday. It was just so people could just experience what it was to live and stay in a place where excellence has been achieved, to be serviced in a way that makes you feel special, and to understand what customer services is, what excellence is in terms of quality. So that was important. And I think, 60% of these people didn't even have passports. Right? I had to get their passports. They'd never been on a plane before. And I think they all came back better, all of them. Then there are many people who traveled around the world, and I think even that interaction with the others who hadn't was very good. So that's one thing. That's on a more landmark scale. In addition to that, we're setting up a hospitality school just to teach people, to train people about customer services, the front end of it. And we're also home to the Nigerian University of Technology and Management, which is a STEM postgraduate program sponsored by MasterCard, and basically they take 60 of the brightest people in Nigeria under the age of 31 to give them this 1 year rigorous program. So the second thing I do is a personal mentorship program. I have a mentorship program. Obviously, I'm limited by time and limited by the number of people I could make an impact in their lives. But the truth is, I wouldn't be where I am today if other people hadn't helped me along my journey. So I think it was important to set up a mentorship program. So I have mentees. I don't know whether a couple of them are even on this call.
You have a lot of fans, Paul. You have a lot of fans. I tell you, they are all over on Twitter now. So yeah, good job.
So I spend a considerable amount of my time advising them about life, and showing them insights and trying to help them to be better people and to be more relevant.
Excellent. Good job. Good job. Love to hear. Good job. Thank you so much. I've got Brits. I think he wants to ask you a question. Brits, you can unmute and you can ask Paul. Whilst doing that, Paul, someone's asking me a question. It's asking, right, is cold call mailing, are you just mailing out cold call emails? Is that a thing in the real estate space? Do you have any comments on that in terms of a marketing strategy? He wants to increase his sales. It's somewhere in Ogun State. He wants to identify a target market by cold emails. Is that a good strategy for him, or what could you advise him to basically try out?
It's a good strategy, but it needs to be laser focused. So I call that the billboard strategy. So when you see a billboard on a highway, right? It's not everybody that sees it that's relevant to it. But there are a few people who see it and pick up the phone and make that call, right? And that's what cold calling does. So cold calling, you have to be laser focused and say, well, I'm calling people that possibly, yes, would want what I'm selling, right? So at least you're not too far off, and be ready to be disappointed, right? Be ready for people to be rude to you and stuff. But if you call 1,000 people and you get 10 good responses, I think it's a win. When I started my business, I did a lot of that. By the way, a lot of cold calling. You just need a good heart and a thick skin.
Thank you for that.
So I think that is Brits. Brits, is that you?
Yes, I'm the one. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Brits.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time I spent on holding this stage to speak to now. Mr. Kalaja, thank you very much. I've been honored to follow you. I really love the fact that, because, but I want to ask Mr. Paul. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you, yes, Brits.
I think what you said was that beautiful, like, sense of giving your time to mentors, people also coming behind you. I really want to appreciate you for that, sir. Thank you. Because we need it, I must be honest. Someone like me, I have 2 questions to ask. The first thing is this, as someone that had experience in the energy sector and also in the AC that is currently, and also as a data analyst, I want to ask, what is the chances of success in real estate? Because currently I've just completed the course on data analyst, and I'm thinking of making use of that in the luxury real estate. I don't know how that is currently, because I've been on that for like a month or thereabout now. I'm just trying to see how data science applications work.
Absolutely. So, the thing about real estate, the reason why there's so many do-it-yourself real estate developers is because everybody that has gone to school has been in the building, into school. Everybody who's been to hospital has been in the building, the hospital. Everybody lives in the house, or has a home, has lived in the house. So we're consumers of our product, right? And if you want to make a transition into real estate, the first thing you have to do is remember you're a consumer. Do the things that you would have done, that you would have wanted others to do to you. So that simple biblical principle, if you like, do unto others what you expect others to do unto you, is so important in real estate. What happens is a lot of people go out there and produce buildings that they wouldn't live in themselves, or they wouldn't go to work in themselves, but they think it's good enough for other people. So I think that's the first principle, because you're a consumer. The second is, if you've been successful in whatever line of business you've been in, apply the same sort of success principles to real estate. You need to be passionate about it. If you're not passionate about your business, you're in the wrong business. Don't go into real estate because you think it makes money, because it loses money too, right? So you go into it because you're passionate about it. You want that. You want to basically turn ordinary people and make them do extraordinary things, right? Because when you go into real estate, you're like what's the guy who when people are singing and playing instruments, he just manages it.
The conductor.
The conductor, yes. So when you go into real estate, you're effectively a conductor, right? So your job is to make ordinary people do extraordinary things, right? And because you're working with so many other people, and how you do that requires organization, requires some real principles, and those principles of transparency, authenticity. I don't say them lightly; they're not buzzwords; they're true. You have to basically get high on your own supply. You have to say to yourself, I am going to walk my talk here, right? So I would say go for it, but plan it. Choose the market you want to be in. Make sure you do it in an excellent way, and you don't have to start by building big stadiums and big cities and big hotels. They say if you can't do great things, then do small things in a great way. So you can start from the little buildings or the little warehouses or stores, and then build up slowly. And that's what we did, and I think it will hold you in good stead if you did the same.
Perfect, Paul. I think it's a perfect response. Thank you so much. So we've got about 10 minutes more. I want to respect Paul's time. He's been here with us for 2 hours. His people are like, my CEO cannot stay here for 2 hours. Paul, I do appreciate you making the time. I really do appreciate you making the time. I got 2 questions for you, right, from Twitter real quick. I have someone asking, this is from Fisher. Fisher is asking, if I want to partner with Landmark as an investor, what figures do I need to look at? Then I have 8. 8 is asking you, I want to create a 5-year plan to get into residential real estate. What would you advise? So one is asking 5-year plan to get into residential real estate. Another guy is asking, I want to invest with Landmark as an investor. What figure should I look at? Thank you.
Okay, so if you want to invest in Landmark as an investor, so I assume you'd want to buy one of our real estate propositions and resell, right? So that would be in the residential element. You'll be looking at a minimum of $100,000 if you were going to do that, and then multiples of that depending on your appetite. If you wanted to invest as a corporate body, as I said, we're going through a private placement right now, and the minimum ticket size will be somewhere in the $5 million region. So that's from the investment. From the second question, was a 5-year plan into residential real estate.
Yeah, residential. Yeah, I just want to do a 5-year plan. What would you advise? Maybe like, yeah.
Yeah, so a 5-year plan to residential real estate. I mean, I think we've spoken a lot about this, about the nuggets. Choose where you want to do it well. Make sure there's services, infrastructure, security. Residential real estate is about where people live. So there are certain boxes it must tick. So you make sure. But the key thing, I think, with residential real estate is find out where the people are going and get there first. So if you want to really make money in real estate, you need to take a punt. So you need to take a risk. You need to figure out where is the place that most people want to be in 5 years' time, right? And then when you decide that, you go there first, right? If they don't come, you lose your money and you lose your shirt. If they do come, you make an absolute bundle. You make generational wealth. So you have to think quite carefully. You have to decide where your risk radar is, the Richter scale of your risk. If you want to take a big chance, and if you're thinking that long term, 5 years, it's a reasonably long time, especially in a place like Nigeria where so many places are developing fast. You've got to think about where's the next best place. I wouldn't do it in Ikoyi or Victoria Island or anything like that if you really want to make generational wealth, because you figure out where people are going.
So go where people are going, go there first and early, and then build, and then they come.
And then wait for them, yes. And if they don't come, just know you lose your shit.
Gotcha, Paul. So someone is asking, what's your take on green buildings? He's basically asking for Nigerian real estate in terms of adoption of green buildings and certification, and what segment will adopt that faster, commercial or residential? That's from Kelechi. Wants to know about real estate.
Yes. I mean, it's such a good question. When I spoke about the attributes of a good business, I talked about scalability and stuff, but I also said sustainability. And sustainability is the future, because if you care about the environment, right, and it's the way the world is going. So unfortunately, Nigeria has not really adopted sustainability, and the reason is simple, right? Is bread and butter issues. People are more worried about power, roads, security than they are about the environment, and that's the truth, right? So they don't really see the link. Having said that, and there are many ways you can approach sustainability. You can approach it to reducing operational costs. So if you can provide energy, whether it's through solar panels or windmills or whatever or your recycling of water, so you're not spending so much money. It makes your real estate cheaper. And in terms of what sector will adopt sustainable methods faster, I would say residential, for the simple reasons that when a guy has to bring the money out from their own pockets, right, they're a little bit more cautious about what they spend it on. So I think you'll find that residential will adopt sustainable things. When I see sort of scatters of solar panels and things like that around Nigeria, they're usually on residential buildings. I mean, the commercial industry will adopt it, but they'll only adopt it at a time when the costs are reduced, and because these are all imported items, the costs are heavy. Yeah. So a lot of people can't draw that line between, it paying for itself over a period of time at this point.
Gotcha. So, Paul, I've had lots of questions about the mentorship. People want to join. Is it something that they can join? How does it work? So, you have a general answer to that, then we'll just take that off the table.
Yeah, the general answer I would say basically it's not about mentorship. Is first of all, if you want to be mentored, the first thing you have to know what you want to be mentored on. People walk up to you and say, "Oh, please mentor me," and the truth is you can't mentor everybody that walks up to you. So they have to bring something special. They have to basically look them in the eyes and say, these guys, you have a great chance of changing someone's life, right? And to do that, the person has to come with a definitive plan, has to understand where they want to go, what their journey is, and how they're going to get there. And explain it, and maybe then you feel you can help. Mentoring is not a magic wand, right, at all. But it's important to take advantage of both it formally and informally. So I have a program, but my program has it comes through two things. It comes through CALA's, the Human Race Foundation, and it comes through the Nigerian University of Technology and Management, and it comes through Landmark.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few people, friends and family that come to me, and I put them in the program. But I must admit, it's hard for me to just take people that I don't know. Otherwise, I just wouldn't be doing anything else.
Mm-hmm. Paul is, like I said, Paul, you're a bit too kind. I would just say this on Twitter space. When I was in university, Paul mentored me, and I'm grateful for that opportunity as well. So I do understand that part about mentorship. So just saying that to you, Paul. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So Paul, again, I'm just trying to wind down. Someone is asking you, right? This is from Emmanuel. Do we expect a bubble in the Lagos real estate market because people are ignoring the price of real estate?
Does he ask the bubble in a positive or a negative way?
I think
the Lagos real estate market has been bubbling for the last 15 years. And I suppose the last 2 or 3 years have been tough on a variety of reasons. One is the regulatory environment, and the second was COVID. But with the COVID behind us and the regulatory environment hopefully will improve, then you're likely to see some more escalations. We know there's a deficit. We know people are getting richer. But not rich enough to buy big properties. But with the financial sector improving, I expect that to have an effect on real estate.
Great. So 2 hours or about 1:52, 1 hour 52 minutes, Paul. I think we're going to wind it down, and just to thank you, allow you to go get a drink of water. I mean, you've been here talking to us, and we appreciate it. So, Paul, any last words before I close down the space? Any words that you want to just share with us?
Yes, I wouldn't mind. I want to first of all tell you maybe a very short story.
Yeah.
So in 1936, there's a gentleman called Matthew Robertson. He shattered the Olympic record, right? Unfortunately, he came second to Jesse Owens. Matthew Robertson went on to become a janitor. Jesse Owens went on to become a world star. The difference in time on that 200-meter world record was 1/4 of a second. And what I'm trying to basically say here, the difference between mediocrity and excellence is a very, very fine line, right? And if you get out of bed in the morning to do something, then take personal responsibility to make sure you can achieve your highest potential possible, right? Don't make excuses. Don't have any regrets. Don't say you're tired. Don't say you'll do it tomorrow. Give everything you can, because you never really know what will turn you. And then, so that on a personal level is aspire to be your best, right? The second thing I would like to say is never really doubt that a very small group of committed, thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has, right? Many people say, well, Nigeria's leadership, this is how places are, and they effectively called it the forest that shelters them a jungle, right? But never call the forest that shelters you a jungle, because things change. Everything in the world changes, right? And one day, a small group of people, right, will take the reins and we'll change this place. They did it in Singapore, they did it in Vietnam, they did it in Taiwan. They've done it in so many different places, even in African states, right? It will happen in Nigeria. You just want to make sure that you're riding that curve when it happens and you're not on the wrong side of it, right? And then the last thing I'd like to say is, good ideas are common, right? And it's very important not just to have the idea, but to actually figure out whether you have what it takes to bring that idea about, right? And execute it and turn it into reality, right? So on that note, I'll say, if you can't write something worth reading, then try and do something that's worth writing about.
Wow. Wow, Paul, you dropped 3 bombs. We just asked for 1. You dropped 3. Fantastic. I mean, that first story about, oh my God, fantastic, Paul. Oh my God, I got to read up on that. And I got to use that. I'm going to steal that and I'm going to use the simple thing. I'm very, very smart. Thank you so much, Paul. Yeah. I mean, Paul, all that is left for me to say is just to say thank you. Nothing more to add. I mean, we brought you in here just to talk about real estate, mentorship, Nigeria. We've asked you all these questions and you have answered without holding anything back. Lots of comments. I can't get to all of them. I apologize for all that have asked and I couldn't get through, but I want just Paul to just talk a lot so that we can hear from him. This Spaces is recorded, so it's going to be on Twitter for the next 30 days, but I always do a recording on my podcast. The way I see it, it's going to be there forever. My podcast address is on the Twitter, my TL. Just go right there and grab it. Paul, do you know I wrote a book, Paul? I wrote a book. Do you know that?
I do, and
yeah.
I've seen a lot about it.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I'd like to read it.
Yeah. I'll send you a copy, and you can also get a good deal for your member of staff. I think it's great. I'll give you a great discount. It's called the Let's Talk About Your Money, and I want to just break down this money thing to bite-sized information people can read and appreciate. Paul, thank you so much. I say that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all for tuning in. Obianuju, thank you for being a great back office host, helping out to sort out all those tech stuff. So thank you so much. You want to say hi and bye, and then we can close out?
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for making out time to join us this evening and sharing all of this useful information and tips. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for tuning in and joining us today. You have a very good Easter celebration. Yes, happy Easter, everybody. Well, for the Christians, happy Easter.
All right, Paul and Paul, to Joshua and to Tega, just tell them thank you as well. They really walked me through the process and they are super, super good. I think they deserve a raise, Paul. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, Paul. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you guys next week. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy, love yourselves, and keep it safe. Thank you so much, and bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
You're welcome, Paul.